Today on the Big 6 in 60, the Thunder get a road win over the Lakers.
This was a fun day of hoops in the 405.
Kansas hands Arizona basketball its first loss of the season.
They take down number one. This becomes their crown jewel victory of the season.
And the Bears have found a new offensive coordinator.
Ben Johnson decides to officially and formally promote passing game coordinator Press Taylor.
This is the Big 6 in 60, the 6 biggest national sports stories from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 60 minutes. The Big 6 in 60 starts now. Thank you for making the Big 6 in 60 your first listen of the day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. The Thunder beat out the Lakers in the fourth and took a win out of LA last night, and Rylan Stiles recaps that victory on Locked On Thunder.
This was a fun day of hoops in the 405. It started out with a twin bill, right? It started out in the G League, where with the OKC Blue, Nikola Topic and Brooks Barnhizer took the floor with Chris Youngblood to take on the Skyforce from Sioux Falls. They got a thrilling win in overtime from Brooks Barnhizer hitting the game winner with the Elam ending at the end of that contest. But of course, the story is Nikola Topic getting to debut for the Thunder organization as he's made it past his treatments and battle with his testicular cancer. And of course, last year was out with the ACL tear. We'll have more on that coming up, and we'll have more on that on tomorrow's show, because not only was I there, there's a big media turnout. Derek Parker there as well. He'll be joining us tomorrow to talk about that. Today, we're also going to talk about the Thunder taking on the Lakers. No Luka for the Lakers, no Shea for the Thunder. So with two of the brightest stars in the league in street clothes, this was still a very fun game. OKC also had to work through the no AJ Mitchell aspect of things, but it was a back and forth game early. And I thought that both teams were playing with an extremely high level that kind of persisted throughout the 48 minutes. And eventually OKC, of course, got the better of Los Angeles. But the Thunder really took hold of this game in the first half with a 14-0 run, sparked by their bench unit, which included 5 quick points from Jared McCain, and OKC grew out that 14-point lead. The Thunder's defense in the first half was swarming, forcing 10 turnovers before intermission. But from, about the 8-minute to go mark in the second quarter through halftime, OKC seemed like this was going to be an impressive win where they kept the Lakers at an arm's distance the entire way for 48 minutes. Look, every win is impressive whenever you don't have SGA on the court against anybody. But on the road in LA, this win still is very impressive, despite the fact that in the third quarter, the Thunder, who had been doing such a great job of hunting mismatches, especially embarrassing Luke Kennard at times on that end of the floor, really had their offense turned upside down and flummoxed by this Lakers team in the third quarter with their zone defense. So it goes from a back and forth, about 4-point game to 14 quickly, then to a 9-point lead at halftime. So still with that control. And then in the third quarter, the Lakers go zone, and this offense from the Thunder fell apart. They could not crack it. They could not knock down looks. The offense dried up like they were in the Sahara Desert. To compound the problem, Oklahoma City stopped forcing turnovers. Their first turnover in the third quarter came with maybe 2 minutes left in the frame? Like, that was not a good defensive outing from them in the third quarter. Their blow-bys to the point of attack were not great. Their paint defense lacked in that third quarter, which I think ultimately leads them to. I think that was a turning point in deciding that the Lakers would get a 2-point advantage when it's all said and done at points in the paint. Credit to LeBron James. He was masterful controlling this game. Yes, we know he's 1 billion years old. Yes, we know he's still playing at a high level, but he controlled the pace in the third quarter. His playmaking really highlighted that Lakers run to get up by 8 points, and the Thunder left a lot of points and a lot of momentum that could have curbed this run sooner for OKC at the charity stripe tonight. Some costly misses and some big spots for the Thunder. But eventually, toward the end of the third quarter, that's when they righted the ship or got the car back on the road, as you hear the Thunder say all the time. Jay Whale bangs a 3 to ignite a 5-0 run by OKC in that third frame, and they never looked fluid offensively in that quarter. after that 5-0 run or at all, even in the midst of that 5-0 run. But OKC also benefited from a Caruso massive three to head into the third quarter up by 2. And the Lakers had not lost, if they were leading in the third quarter this whole season. Still haven't, because they did not lead at the end of the third quarter in this one. So that was a big-time three if you believe in the statistics of it all. But I thought that ultimately the Thunder in that third quarter almost cost themselves the game by their defensive approach in that third frame. And that's an area where, hey, credit to OKC for recovering. Credit to them for not letting the game go. But the Lakers made 50% of their shots in that third quarter, scored 33 points in this one compared to OKC's 26 points in that third quarter. They hit 60% of their threes, but really didn't need to take any of them. 5 attempts from beyond the arc compared to OKC's 11, and yet still, with that 5 attempts from beyond the arc compared to OKC's 11, OKC only hit 1 more three than the Lakers in that third quarter, because the Lakers were doing such damage at getting to the paint, at getting to the rim in this one. So I thought that you saw LeBron, of course, come alive. 10 points in the third quarter, 3 assists to go along with what we were talking about just a moment ago. And it didn't feel good for OKC. The crowd came alive, and it felt like the Lakers could really get one. It felt like a game that both teams really needed. You can argue the Lakers more desperately, because at least there is the Shea factor and the J-Dub returning factor of him still being beat up. But look, Austin Reeves was on a minute restriction as well, and early on in this game, he played a lot better than he did in the second half. Like, you look at his first half stint for the Lakers, and Austin Reeves was 5 for 7 and just dancing out there, getting to his spots very comfortably. In the first half, he had 12 points and he had 6 assists to go along with it in just 13 minutes, really 14 minutes of action for Austin Reeves. But the Thunder were able to bottle him up in the third quarter and see him miss some shots in the third quarter that you can argue he should have made. And in the fourth quarter, he only hit 1 bucket, so just 1 bucket for him in the second half. But that first half started strong for Reeves, and you coupled that strong close to get them within single digits with LeBron's third quarter, and you got that mega Thunder run. I mean, that mega Lakers run that got them up by 8 points. And in this game, there were some different moments where you could really see the absence of Shea. When it looked like it was going to tilt toward the purple and gold's direction, the first thing that jumped out was the turnovers. The turnovers were a killer for OKC after, creating the 10 in the first half. And we mentioned how they went through that dry spell of creating them. They themselves in this game had 15 turnovers. And that is abnormal for OKC. And it's only abnormal for OKC because of how much of the on-ball duty that Shea soaks up. And despite the high usage from Shea on the ball, he keeps the turnovers at a minimal, which expands itself to the Thunder's entire team. And they, as a team, do not turn the ball over. So you miss Shea in that capacity. You also miss Shea in the margin of error. Well, we've spent this entire season talking about how the Thunder have such a wide margin for error. It's because of Shea, right? Yes, they did not play good defensively and in the third quarter, and there is no injury excuse for that. While Shea's a good defender, like, the guys on the court are great defenders still, and they should have played better defense in that third quarter. They had a bad quarter, and that's going to happen. But you can relieve some of that by the fact that Shea plays 12 minutes in the third quarter every single game when he's right. And you make a couple more buckets against that Lakers zone in the third quarter, and all of a sudden it feels differently, which I think is a credit to OKC, because for as bad as that third quarter run felt, and as bad as you might be feeling right now hearing it described back to you, at the end of the day, that third quarter run could only get the Lakers up by 8. So the Thunder did a good job of making this game be played in this small deficit, and they did a good job of responding and trading blows with the Lakers in a game that got very physical, in a game that had a playoff level feel to it, from the physicality to the crowd. And you love to see that break out in a regular season affair. And you could tell that both sides wanted this game. But Jay Will again hits a massive 3 to make it an 8-point game with under 3 to go, which arguably could have been the dagger for Jay Will, who's hit 2 big threes that we've already shouted out before we get to the player segment. And the Thunder hold off the Lakers from there with some crucial stops in the final minutes, getting right on the defensive end of the floor. And so I think that the Thunder, who got up by 14 points in this one in the second quarter, they experienced 22 lead changes, 10 ties in this one. OKC won the rebounding battle 58-45, despite the two teams being tied at 15 turnovers in this one. The Thunder lost points in the paint by 2, 50-48, which is abnormal for them, as abnormal as it is to win the rebounding battle for them. The Thunder won second chance points by 10 because Isaiah Hartenstein was so big on the offensive glass. We'll talk about that coming up. The Thunder lost fast break points 12-9. The Thunder shot 48% from the floor, 42% from three, and 72% at the charity stripe. The Lakers shot 50% from the floor, 32% from three, and 69% from the charity stripe. OKC left 8 points on the board at the free throw line. However, the Thunder did make 4 more triples than the Lakers. The Thunder had 14 3-pointers, which goes back to our stat we've talked about with this team. Yes, they're inconsistent. Yes, they're streaky. Yes, they have some 3-point deficiencies, which you would hope is going to be cleared up in the future by the addition of Jared McCain, by the fact that Isaiah Joe had his impressive first half, which we'll talk about. But it is the reality. And with that being said, in games in which they just get even slightly above average 3-point production, which is around 12 for the league average for 3-pointers made, they hit 14 tonight. The offense just looked, outside of the third quarter, so much better than it has in games this year, and it got them a win. They have a great record whenever they take a lead into the fourth quarter. They have a great record whenever they are able to hit above a league average threes. They did both of those things tonight and got this win over the Lakers. At the end of the day, 119-110. They snapped their 2-game losing streak, and we have to be fair. We talked about the injuries that had hit this team, and they had 8 active players in San Antonio, and we talked about how dire the situation was of if they could just get any win, much less any win against anybody not named the Milwaukee Bucks, it would be impressive. Tonight was impressive.
The Winter Games are officially here, and if you're anything like us, you're locking in for events you only get to see on the biggest stage every 4 years. That's why following the Winter Games on FanDuel just makes sense. From medal counts to individual events is finding your angle on the sports you care about the most. FanDuel gives you more ways to stay connected to the action. It's the building drama of curling matches, races defined by inches or fractions of a second. Both popular and niche events become must-watch when you're fully locked into the competition. The Winter Games are on, and there's no better place to follow them with FanDuel. Play your game.
Welcome back to the Big 6 and 60. Kansas hosted previously unbeaten Arizona last night, and the Jayhawks handed the number 1 Wildcats their first loss of the season, even with star Darren Peterson out for the game. Locked On Jayhawks host Derek Johnson has the recap.
Kansas wins 82-78. They take down number 1. This becomes their crown jewel victory of the season, in which they continue to stay rolling. They've now won 8 consecutive games, and now we can have the conversation of KU being in the Big 12 title race. Who would have thought we could be having this conversation after the 1-2 start to the season, right? And now, obviously, you still have a very difficult schedule in front of you. Arizona's probably not going to lose many more games. Houston is hanging around with just 1 loss still. Iowa State's still hanging around there too. But you're at least in the conversation now. And that is what we are used to. That's what we're accustomed to. That is the standard for KU basketball. And you're back to that place here after this win over Arizona. And just an unbelievable game itself. I mean, the first half, you had this back and forth offensive shootout where it felt like nobody could kind of stop each other. And KU was just finding a way to score the basketball to keep up with Arizona, making some really tough shots. And then the second half comes around and KU is a little cold to start, and Arizona comes out continuing hitting their shots that they did in the first half. And KU gets down 11 points. And at that point, when you're down 11, without Darren Peterson, everything's going against you, number 1 team in the country, Avalanche coming at you, it felt like it could have been all right, well, we have some excuses to sit back on. Like we played well for a little bit there. But no, they kept fighting, as they've done all season long. Like a little bit of a reminder of the Tennessee game, honestly, looking back at it. Like KU gets down double digits in the Tennessee game after a strong first half when it felt like you're kind of hanging around, and then you get down double digits and it's like, well, they showed a good effort here against a good opponent. You're without Peterson. And then they come back and win the freaking game. Very similar to the Tennessee game, honestly, the more I think about it now. And KU was able to get this done tonight, I think, in a couple different ways. One, the elite defense. I mean, specifically, like, here's the thing. Arizona in the first half shot 51% from the floor. They were 4 of 8 from 3. And Bill Self talked at the halftime post game that like we're allowing them too much space. They're getting too close to the rim. And I think all those things were true. But even then, it felt like in that first half, Arizona was making some tough shots. Like, yes, there were some shots that were open, but like it felt like Arizona was earning what they were getting in the first half. Like that first half was just like, wow, this team's clicking. They're making tough shots. And then the second half, it almost felt like KU said, hey, we're going to start taking away the stuff at the rim a little bit more. We're going to push you out a little further, and we're going to dare you to continue to make those tough shots. And at the beginning of the second half, they were still making some of those tough shots. But as a game went on, you started to wear into them. They had that 9-minute stretch where they only had one field goal. They finished shooting just 37% in the second half for the game. That is the difference in this game. KU playing elite defense down the stretch. And that is everything you could possibly want from this Kansas team. The idea that if this Kansas team is going to make noise in March, I mean, ideally you have a healthy Darren Peterson to pair with what could be elite defense. But it also came from the front line of Kansas. And in the first half, it felt like Arizona was playing a little bit of bully ball. Like Awaka's coming in, getting rebounds. Krivas is just gigantic and large and doing gigantic human things, rebounding and blocking shots. And in the second half, so the first half, Bryson Tiller really kept KU alive with his scoring. And then in the second half, it was Flory Badunga figuring out how to deal with a dude much bigger than him. And that was incredible to see and furthers my thought that Flory looks like an NBA center right now. I mean, Flory in the second half alone had 16 points and 8 rebounds. That would have been a good game for him against this Arizona front line. He had that in the second half. So it's the front line. It's Melvin Council making key shots for KU. The best inefficient game I've ever seen from Melvin Council. It's Jamari McDowell having a big first half. I know it wasn't as strong in the second half, but that helps you keep within striking distance. Same with the Tiller first half, right? It's Marco hitting a few timely buckets. And like, that's the thing here too. If you would have said without Darren Peterson, KU was going to upset number 1 Arizona, I would have kind of thought that like, okay, maybe KU just got like white hot from 3. You know what I mean? Like maybe KU found a way to hit 12 threes, like Melvin Council had an NC State game, or Trey White like went bonkers from 3. But you end up with a game where Trey White is 1 of 6 from the floor. You end up with a game where Paul Mbia played and had 0.0 rebounds. Cole Rosario played, had 0.0 rebounds. Jaden Dawson did not play. And that was all the contributions you got, and you still beat them. You went 5 of 15 from 3. Arizona, a team who came into this shooting 32% from 3 in Big 12 play, they actually shot 40%. And you somehow beat them. You almost, like, I don't know if I'd go this far. Arizona still out-rebounded you and stuff, but you almost in a certain way against a team who wants to play bully ball, who wants to play 2-big basketball, you almost out-physicaled them in a certain way, right? Like there were certain moments where they out-physicaled you, and I think that's especially true in the first half. But the fact that Kansas had only 1 less offensive rebound than Arizona, the fact that Kansas only had 2 less points in the paint against the team averaging the most points in the paint in the country, the fact that Kansas matched Arizona with 8 blocks, KU went toe-to-toe in the front court, and that's what this is about to me. You get 41 combined points, 18 combined rebounds from Flory and Tiller. Those are 2 future pros KU has in the front court, and we saw why tonight. And that was really, really cool for KU. And so now, I mean, we can get into some of the biggest positives and negatives of the game. Like the biggest positives are the front line, Jamari McDowell's first half, just the overall resiliency and grit that this team continues to show. Biggest turnover or negatives you would kind of look at would be, I don't know, like Trey White struggling or Tiller getting hurt there at the end. But I don't even want to focus on those things because I think just in general, the win itself is such a boost for this team from a couple different levels. One is obviously the resume. Everything you're doing at this point is basically padding the resume, right? To build for what seed you could get in the NCAA tournament. And we're going to have Graham Doran, who does great bracketology work, on with us later this week to kind of break down the seeding. Now I'm even more excited to talk to him to be like, okay, what does this potentially do for KU seed? Are they in play for a 1 seed based on how they finished the season? This creates all those conversations. This creates the conversation of, are you a Big 12 title contender? This puts you into all of those conversations. This lifts up your resume in a real way with a crown jewel win that nobody else has. You're the only team that has beaten Arizona to this point in time. Like that makes it a very special win. And beyond all of that, if we're just talking from this would have been a huge win even if Darren Peterson played, but it's objectively if you could have gone back in time to the moment you found out Darren Peterson wasn't going to go and somebody from the future would have came back in time and told you, hey, Kansas can win this game, but it's going to take them not playing with Darren Peterson. Obviously, you would have taken it because you just wanted to win the game. But it almost makes it more impressive, right? Because now like the whole idea has been, oh, Kansas is a good team. They're a better team than we thought without Darren Peterson. They can get by. They're scrappy. But can they beat a UConn, right? They lose that game at home to UConn. Can they beat one of the elite teams in the country? Well, guess what you showed tonight? I get it. It's at home. Allen Fieldhouse was phenomenal. It'll be tougher to play in Tucson and stuff. But point being, you showed tonight that scrappy bunch of characters, group with Melvin Council, those dudes in the front court, even playing basically a 6-man rotation without Darren Peterson. That scrappy group beat the number one team in the country without Darren Peterson. So I guess the sky's the limit for this team with or without Darren Peterson. And that's a pretty dang cool thing to come away from this game with.
The Cavs went into Denver and overcame a triple-double from Nikola Jokic to beat the Nuggets, and Locked On Cavs host Danny Cunningham has more on the win.
The Cavs getting a 119-117 win over the Denver Nuggets on Monday night. I think this is the win of the season. Like, I think that the Cavs have had several nice wins, right? Like, they've won now 33 games on the season. They've won 9 out of 10. They've won 12 out of 15. Like, there's a lot of good things that have happened lately. But as you go through some of their wins, obviously some are more impressive than others. And this is not for me to say that they haven't had several other very good wins, because unquestionably they have. But this, to me, is the most impressive one that they've had for several different reasons. One, the Denver Nuggets are a very, very good basketball team, and Denver has dealt with injuries, no question about it. But the Nuggets have, in my opinion, the best player in the world, Nikola Jokic, on the floor, played 35 minutes or whatever it was in this game. Like, he is just at a different level, I think, than anybody else playing the game of basketball right now. They have Jamal Murray, who's been very, very good this season. Not the best guard in this game, but been very, very good this season. They're playing at home. The Cavs are in the fifth and final game of an 11-day West Coast road trip. Like, I thought for most of this game, and a big part of the reason why I'm so impressed with this win is I thought it would have been really easy for this Cavs team to, at the start of the fourth quarter, let go of the rope. Nobody would have blamed them. I think everybody, if you're watching or listening to this show, if the Cavs would have, when they were down by 11 in the fourth quarter, if they would have just lost this game by like 8 points, I think the feeling probably would have been, they played hard. It didn't go their way. They didn't shoot well. The Nuggets got to the free throw line a ton. Like, there could have been things to be upset about, but I think the totality of the road trip still would have been a positive one. But the fact that they just kept at it, they kept hammering away, they kept keeping their head down and pushing forward and trying to find a way to get a win, that to me is what makes this so impressive, because they did it against a team that I think is very capable of winning the NBA championship in June. Like, that is a team, if the Denver Nuggets win the finals in June, I wouldn't be surprised. And the Cavs went into their building while they were exhausted, while they are a new team where they have not had a practice yet with James Harden. And they went in and they found a way to come back from down 11 points in the fourth quarter to get a win. And that to me just really stands out, because this is something that I don't want to say the Cavs were not capable of earlier this season, because we've seen the Cavs in far more often than not, when we would see the Cavs trailing the way they were at the start of this fourth quarter, they would make a comeback and then it's not enough. They couldn't find a way to get over that hump, but they found a way to get over the hump in this game. And doing that against an awesome team in Denver, I look at and just say that is incredibly impressive, especially while, and one of the things I do want to talk about today, like, this is game 2 of the Donovan Mitchell, James Harden experience. I think if this is what we're getting in game 2, and I thought both of them were very good in this game, and James Harden came up clutch, the 3-pointer that he hit to tie it with, I think, like 35 or 36 seconds left in regulation. He was fouled on the play too. That was not called. I am fascinated to see the last 2-minute report that comes out on Tuesday of this game, because I felt like Zach Zarba and the officiating crew did not have a very good night in Denver. I did not think this was a very well officiated game. I thought that Harden was fouled on that 3-pointer. Nothing was called, but made it, tied the game. Huge shot, huge play from him. I thought in like the scoring in the fourth quarter from Harden wasn't crazy. Like, he didn't take over the fourth quarter with scoring the same way that he did against Sacramento. Like, he only in the fourth quarter had 6 points. He had 2 threes. Both of them were big shots, but he had 4 assists. He had 4 rebounds, played 10 minutes, was a plus 13 in those 10 minutes. Like, he did so many things, I felt like, that impacted winning in the fourth quarter of this basketball game. And with Harden, it's not always going to be scoring. Like, I do think that in the 2 games that he's played for the Cavs, he has shown himself. And if you are not familiar with James Harden, like if you are a Cavs fan maybe you are a Cavs fan that your only experience with watching James Harden has been when James Harden has played the Cavs. And then for the most part, other than that, or maybe watching the playoffs, he could be a guy that's kind of out of sight, out of mind. And there's no shame in that. Like, I completely get that type of, viewing experience. But I think in these 2 games, if that is an accurate description of you, I think you have learned what kind of basketball savant this guy is, because it's not just the scoring. It's not just the ability to get to the free throw line. And he didn't get, James Harden took the 4th most free throws in this game. Jonas Valanciunas took 10 free throws in 15 minutes. I think that says a lot about Zach Zarba and the crew that called this game. But it was, to me, watching how he's able to distribute the basketball, how he's able to put guys in the position to be successful. And there's a play, and I quote tweeted it over at my Twitter, Real D Cunningham. And I want to explain it here because it's in the final couple of minutes of the game. And the Cavs James Harden has the ball near half court, and he wants to run pick and roll. And the first thing the Cavs do is they want to get Christian Braun of Denver off of James Harden. So Sam Merrill goes up, sets a screen for Harden, forces a switch. So Christian Braun is off of James Harden. And then he calls up Jared Allen to run a 1-5 pick and roll. Well, Nikola Jokic knows this is coming because he too is a very smart basketball player, you might imagine. And he sends Jamal Murray, who is also in the same corner with Jared Allen, where Jared Allen is in the dunker spot. He sends Jamal Murray up so that basically the Nuggets have 2 smalls defending that pick and roll, and Jokic can then come and help over later. But Harden sees this. And then because of that, Harden doesn't really run that pick and roll. He throws the ball to Donovan Mitchell on the left wing. Allen still rolls to the rim. Jamal Murray is ball watching. He sees the pass go to Donovan Mitchell, and he sort of relaxes a little bit and forgets that he's supposed to be defending Jared Allen. Mitchell sees a wide open Allen in the paint, and Allen is able to then spin around Christian Braun and lay the ball in for 2 points to cut the deficit to 1. And it's like those type of plays where you can see that he is seeing this game a step or 2 ahead. Like, it is the basketball IQ of James Harden. And I do think there are a lot of high IQ basketball players on this Cavs team. Like Donovan Mitchell has an incredibly high basketball IQ. I think Evan Mobley has an incredibly high basketball IQ. But the fact that Harden's basketball IQ is as high as it is, I think has made this so it's an easier transition. Because I do think as we watch this, and James has played with a lot of high IQ players throughout his career. There's no doubt about that. Like Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, Chris Paul, Kawhi Leonard. Like most of the great players in the NBA are high IQ guys. But I think that is something, and that play is just one example of it. But that is something that I think makes this transition easier for the Cavs. I think it makes it easier for everybody involved. And yeah, James is going to hit shots some nights, and some nights he might not have the best shooting night, but he's still, I think, on this team, especially with the way that the group is built, I think on a very regular basis, even on nights where he doesn't have it going scoring, and like he scored 22 points in this game. That's fine. That's all the Cavs. They don't need much more than that from James Harden. There are going to be nights where he has 35. There are probably going to be nights where he has 15. But I think on every night, there are going to be ways where he can impact winning. And like one of the other things too, in this game, and they took one away, he originally had 4 blocks in this game. James Harden finished with 3 blocks on the night. Like, I know that he's not the best defender, and I know that there are times where he's not a very good off-ball defender, but he did a lot of really good things. Like defensively, the final or second to last possession that Denver had, where he comes over and shows a late double to Nikola Jokic, and Jokic ends up turning the ball over, who, by the way, had 7 turnovers in this game. And I thought Jared Allen did a very good job defending Nikola Jokic in this game. But like, that is a very high IQ basketball play. That is a a good defensive play from him, even if it's not something that you're like, oh man, all defense type of guy. So I thought James Harden was very good in this game. I thought Donovan Mitchell was really good in this game because in the first half, and I think that this game can sort of be looked at as a sense of the moment type thing for Donovan Mitchell, because the Cavs were exhausted. Like, part of the reason why this is such a impressive win for the Cavs, the free throw disparity, which to me, was it a greatly officiated game? No, but the Cavs I also thought were at times a step slow. And when you are a step slow at times, you're going to foul more because you're going to be reaching more, right? Like, that's part of it. So with that, I thought, okay, they're, a step slow. They're losing the 50-50 battles to the Nuggets in a lot of different instances. And this, to be clear, was not like, Denver just wants this more. That's not what it was. It was the Cavs looked exhausted. And I think Donovan could sense that. And that's why the first half that he had, in which he was awesome. I think he had 18 points, probably could have had 25 with some of the looks that he missed. But he goes out and he's able to keep the Cavs within shouting distance. And I thought that was a really important thing. Because again, if the Cavs would have lost this game because of all the things that went wrong, I don't think anyone would have blamed them, right? Like, because it was not an effort thing. It was just don't know how much gas is in the tank. But for Donovan in the first half to go out there and have 18 points when the Cavs sorely needed it, like, he was, to me, without question, the best player on the floor in the first half of this game. He was. And I thought that was really, really important. And in the third quarter too, to just like keep the Cavs close. He had 10 points in the third quarter when the Cavs really needed it, partially because they were not shooting the ball well from beyond the arc. The Cavs as a whole, they were 15 of 45. That's 33%. Like, they did not do a great job making shots. They're going to have, and I thought that was, again, a sign of tired legs at the end of the road trip. So there were a lot of things that I thought the Cavs overcame to win this game. And I think that should be looked at as a really big step in the right direction, because not only does it show that even on their off nights where this was not some greatly, like, they didn't play awesome, right? They did not play a great game against Denver, but they found a way to win. So even on their off nights, they are showing that they're capable of beating very good teams, because that is exactly what Denver is. Denver is a great basketball team. And I get it. They're not at full strength, but the Cavs don't have Evan Mobley. Like, I know that Denver is without Aaron Gordon. They're without Peyton Watson, but Evan Mobley is the best player that did not play in this game between these two teams. And I think that is something that matters greatly when you talk about it. But the Cavs finding a way to beat a really, really good team when they don't have their best stuff is not something that was possible earlier this season. I think that this is an example of showing that the floor for this team is higher than it was before, but it's also a mental toughness example. Like, it would have, as I mentioned, it would have been easy for the Cavs to fold. It would have been. Nobody would have batted an eye. We all would have said 3-2 on that West Coast road trip while the team's totally remade. James Harden had no practice time. 3-2, very acceptable outcome for that 5-game trip. Instead, they go 4-1. And it's hard for me to look at that and say this was anything other than an incredible success. And the other thing that happened while the Cavs were out west is I think their mindset has shifted. I think that this is a team that now believes in itself in a way that I'm not sure it believed in itself when the plane originally took off for Phoenix a couple of weeks ago.
The Winter Games are officially here, and if you're anything like us, you're locking in for events you only get to see on the biggest stage every 4 years. That's why following the Winter Games on FanDuel just makes sense. From medal counts to individual events is finding your angle on the sports you care about the most. FanDuel gives you more ways to stay connected to the action. It's the building drama of curling matches, races defined by inches or fractions of a second. Both popular and niche events become must-watch when you're fully locked into the competition. The Winter Games are on, and there's no better place to follow them with FanDuel. Play your game.
Welcome back to the Big Six in 60. The Bears needed to find a new offensive coordinator after Declan Doyle left for the Ravens, and Chicago decided to promote from within and gave passing game coordinator Press Taylor the job. Lauren Cox has more on Locked On Bears.
The Bears, instead of going out and bringing an external offensive coordinator in, and they tried to interview a few candidates from outside the organization, instead, Ben Johnson decides to officially and formally promote passing game coordinator Press Taylor to the full offensive coordinator role, maintaining a certain amount of offensive continuity. I mean, essentially, Press Taylor was the next man up in the hierarchy when you had Ben Johnson as the head coach play caller, Declan Doyle as the offensive coordinator, then Press Taylor as passing game coordinator, and then position coaches are kind of below that. It does make some natural sense of just like, all right, you take one guy out of that order and just kind of shift everybody up. And really in the modern NFL coaching staffs, you don't necessarily have to have a separate offensive coordinator and pass game coordinator. You could plug Press Taylor into that OC role and not even replace him as pass game coordinator and just have offensive coordinator handle all of those duties. Many teams do not have a passing game coordinator or a running game coordinator. It's a way you can sneak more coaches on your staff if you want to, but it's a little bit more optional than, say, a quarterback's coach that you just have to have somebody in that role. And Press Taylor was one of these guys who not long ago was viewed in some of the same light as one of these young, fast rising coaches in the NFL. I mean, he is still only, I think, 38 at this stage of the process. And sometimes I think we forget that just as players develop as they go throughout their career, coaches do too. And the way a coach is the first time he coaches a position is going to be different than the way he is the second time he does it. And first time he's a coordinator, second time he's a coordinator, it's the first time he's a head coach, second time he's a head coach. Like, these guys do develop and change over time. So he's still growing into what he's going to be as an NFL coach. But for background on Press Taylor, he got his start in the NFL with the Eagles, originally brought in by Chip Kelly when he was head coach. But then when they fired Chip Kelly and brought in Doug Peterson, Peterson kept him around, and they were pretty close. They ended up forming a bond that would be a theme throughout the course of Press Taylor's career here, certainly. But one of the keys for Press Taylor in Philadelphia, initially he was a quality control coach, then assistant QB coach, then QB coach, then passing game coordinator. Throughout that process, when the Eagles went to the Super Bowl, I believe that was 2017, Press Taylor was made famous because he was the one who came up with the Philly special play. That he had kind of drawn that up and suggested it to Doug Peterson, and then they pull it out in the Super Bowl in such a key clutch play for Nick Foles or whatever to be the hero in that game. And all of a sudden, like, that was sort of like Press Taylor's young claim to fame of like, oh wow, this smart rising QB coach in Philadelphia that just won the Super Bowl and drew up the Super Bowl trick play. Like, he's a guy to keep an eye on here. And then, things generally kind of go south in Philadelphia, and Doug Peterson gets fired. Taylor gets fired as well. He spends a year in between with the Colts and Frank Reich, who he had worked with on the Eagles. Before then, Doug Peterson gets hired by the Jacksonville Jaguars and brings Press Taylor with him to the Jacksonville Jaguars to be his offensive coordinator there. And you saw when Doug Peterson and Press Taylor took over the Jaguars, there was instant turnaround and success. I mean, they took over after Urban Meyer ran that place in the ground for a year. They were the worst ranked offense in football, and Press Taylor and Doug Peterson come in, and they're top 10 in points, top 10 in yards. It's Trevor Lawrence's second season. He takes that nice year 2 bump with these two coaches coming in over from the Eagles. They go 9-8. They win a playoff game, and it's like, all right, maybe they got a little something figured out here. Like, Press Taylor is continuing some of that upward trajectory a little bit in here. Now, to be fair, they ranked exactly 10th in points and yards, but still a massive turnaround from where they had been the year before under Urban Meyer. They had ETN in the backfield. I think it was his rookie season. He was running the ball well. They had signed Christian Kirk in free agency, gave him a huge contract, but got 1,000 yards out of him. Zay Jones came over and had a big season. Evan Ingram was playing well for them at tight end. Like, they had a nice little passing and running game going in that offense that felt like they were maybe starting to turn a little bit of something around with a playoff win for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Year 2, they go 9-8 again. Offense is a little worse, 13 in points, 13 in yards, despite trading for Calvin Ridley, but their defense was in a pretty consistent downward spiral from that first year on down, and wasn't always getting the best support on that side of the ball. They go 9-8. They don't make the playoffs, but same record. And then year 3, Trevor Lawrence gets hurt. He only plays about half of the season. There, everything drops off. Everything gets, everything just goes out the window. The Doug Peterson loses the locker room a bit. So then, what are they supposed to do on the coaching staff there? And they go 4-13, and everybody's fired. But the defense was particularly bad. The general manager, who ended up getting fired as well, and he hadn't necessarily been hitting on a bunch of big draft picks. They were struggling to really consistently load talent on that Jaguars team outside of, I think, the weapons where they drafted Brian Thomas, had to hit that rookie year, but a lot of the defense and, the trenches and stuff, they just weren't building a consistent team. So, how much of that is on Press Taylor, how much of that is not, is something we will talk about a little bit more as the podcast goes on here. But I think if you're trying to take the optimistic look from Ben Johnson's perspective, you can say, look, like, when Press Taylor was the offensive coordinator there, they got more out of Christian Kirk than any other season of his career. They got more out of Zay Jones than they ever did in Baltimore and any other season of his career. They got more out of Evan Ingram than they did with the Giants and other seasons of his career. Like, they found a way to get good production out of the weapons that they had. Even when I think their offensive line was okay, they had some young talent in there and some question marks on the interior. It wasn't a stellar offensive line by any means, not a lot of defensive help. And now Press Taylor can step out of Doug Peterson's shadow, offer his perspective in the Bears offense, and kind of forge his own identity. He was always a Doug Peterson guy through and through and through and through. And now he can have his own voice with Ben Johnson and kind of share that perspective here. Like, no one is here trying to say Press Taylor is some great coach and that this is a home run hire by the Chicago Bears. But it also, I think we can take a minute to acknowledge it doesn't have to be a disaster, right? Like, I think there's a lot of pessimism about Press Taylor, and we're going to go through all of it coming up next on the podcast. But like, it doesn't mean like just because there were some issues in the past doesn't mean that he hasn't gotten any better or that things won't be any better. Because first of all, like, Ben Johnson is still in charge of the offense, still the offensive play caller. Everything runs through him. So Press Taylor's role in Chicago will be a little bit smaller than what we saw, the last couple of years there in Jacksonville when things went poorly. And also, there's a certain amount of like, Ben Johnson's earned the benefit of the doubt here. That like, we can't expect that he's going to get every single decision right, but we can't instantly assume it's going to be wrong either and just say, oh, well, Ben Johnson must be wrong here. I mean, if he's picking an offensive coach for his offense, there's got to be some real value and merit that he sees that, of course, we on the outside that aren't in those meeting rooms and aren't in the film rooms and aren't in the locker room, we just don't get to see it there. If you're wondering, as a brief aside, what Ben Johnson's connection is to Press Taylor, like why he even brought him in from the Jaguars in the first place, the best connection I can find is that Press Taylor, you may or may not know, is the younger brother of Cincinnati Bengals head coach Zach Taylor. And Zach Taylor and Ben Johnson coached together on the Miami Dolphins as assistant coaches at the same time. So, I'm sure he has a relationship with Zach, perhaps has a relationship with Press through Zach Taylor. And now that Press Taylor has been here, it's not like Ben Johnson is just pulling Press Taylor from the street and saying, all right, we'll throw him into coordinator. He's been in these rooms before. It's not an unknown of Ben Johnson trying something new and seeing what happens with Press Taylor here. Like, this is a known person in the building that he has had a full year to evaluate and determine whether or not he thinks he would be a good fit for offensive coordinator. And he did. And I think he's at least Ben Johnson has earned the right for us to at least hear him out and see where it goes, where he can totally have reservations. And there were plenty of reasons for reservations given some of the struggles he has had.
The Winter Games are officially here, and if you're anything like us, you're locking in for events you only get to see on the biggest stage every 4 years. That's why following the Winter Games on FanDuel just makes sense. From medal counts to individual events is finding your angle on the sports you care about the most. FanDuel gives you more ways to stay connected to the action. It's the building drama of curling matches, races defined by inches or fractions of a second. Both popular and niche events become must-watch when you're fully locked into the competition. The Winter Games are on, and there's no better place to follow them with FanDuel. Play your game.
Welcome back to the Big 6 in 60. Former head coach Adam Gase has returned to the NFL after 5 years away from the game as the Chargers hired him to run the passing game in LA. After the move, Daniel Wade and David Drogmeyer give their thoughts on Locked On Chargers.
This is something that was floating out there over the weekend, the Chargers' interest in potentially bringing back Adam Gase, which was kind of a name that I never thought we would hear again, and who completely kind of fell off the NFL map after his last stint with the New York Jets. But this was a really surprising hire, for sure. I mean, this is kind of what the report is. Pretty ambiguous as far as what his role is going to be, but this is from Ian Rappaport. He's back. After a 5-year hiatus, Adam Gase returns to coaching in the NFL, joining the Chargers as an assistant, focusing on the passing game. Sources say Chris Rim also said that he is just an offensive assistant, which means it likely isn't the passing game coordinator role, which is a very hot and trendy role and really high up there as far as the pipeline of getting better jobs in head coaching and offensive coordinator jobs. But it's just interesting, man. It's something I didn't see coming. Like, obviously, if we're coming up with lists of guys to add to this staff, especially with no real connections to Mike McDaniel, this was pretty far down the list of guys I would have said.
Yeah, I mean, like, where did this come from? It seemed like this was way out of left field. Like, when I saw the reports of this coming out, I'm like, why? Like,
Yeah.
like, it's been 5 years since this guy's been in the NFL, and the last time we saw him, he was head coach of the Jets after a 2-14 season. He was let go and, you know, basically escaped into the abyss of trying to hide from the world after some pretty bad performances out there. But I guess for me, when I looked at it and analyzed it, it's like, okay, well, is he a coordinator? No. Is he, you know, even a passing game coordinator? No. Like, he's an offensive assistant. So I guess in that, you know, just looking at it in that way, I feel like it's okay because I don't know how much of an impact he's going to have on the day-to-day operations of the offense.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is, too, that it's always important to remember, this is Mike McDaniel's offense, right?
Yeah.
Like, he's going to be calling the plays, which means, you know, the offensive coordinator is a little less, or, you know, like the passing game coordinator is a little less important, right? Whoever's under that, a little less important, because you have the top guy being able to actually call the plays and build his offense. So
yeah,
I'd say this is probably on par with the Mark Trestman hiring in 2024, looking for, you know, some sort of senior analyst of some sort, you know, some sort of offensive assistant in that way. But yeah, I mean, this is a guy that, weirdly enough, you know, had a failing stint with the Dolphins as a head coach after being a hot offense coordinator himself once upon a time. Then immediately was hired by the Jets to be their head coach and had the crazy eyes interview that I'll never forget because it was terrifying. And then it was kind of like, man, it's hard to kind of take this guy seriously. It ends up being a disaster. He had Sam Darnold after he was just drafted. You said they ended a 2-14 season in 2020, which is the last time he coached, but had Sam Darnold in his second and third seasons, in which Darnold went 9-16 under Gase and threw 28 touchdowns and 24 interceptions. I mean, as a head coach, his offense has never finished higher than 17th in scoring and ranked 26th or worse in every other season. So it wasn't great as a head coach. I mean, it's probably fair to say better off as an offensive coach than a head coach, as history would say. But at the same time, I think with Mike McDaniel, as he builds the staff and just knowing that Mike McDaniel has always kind of been part of some of the top offenses in the league and has shown that he can lead one of those, I think you give him a benefit of the doubt that maybe you wouldn't to an offensive coordinator with maybe a little less experience.
Yeah, no question about it. I mean, and that's the thing to keep in mind is Mike McDaniel is the guy running the show. He's going to be the guy running the offense. He's going to be the one that's going to be setting everything up. And, you know, he's formulating his staff. You know, he's putting together a staff that's going to help him be able to disseminate this offense down to players who are learning it for the first time. And so you want to have guys that are going to be able to have different perspectives at different levels, but also be well-versed in what you're trying to bring to the table. And so Mike McDaniel had to feel good that Adam Gase was going to be on that same page and be able to help advance his offense, an offense that we all expect to be of the cutting edge variety in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, I think at least the bare minimum of what he's telling you is he respects him as an offensive mind, right?
Yeah.
And like, it's a long time ago, but he was the offensive coordinator for a couple of the best offenses we've ever seen at this level. Offensive coordinator for the Broncos in 2013 and 2014, but in 2013 was the year Peyton Manning threw 55 touchdowns and 5,477 yards in a 16-game season. The next season, Manning threw 39 touchdowns and had 4,700 yards. And then the next year after that is actually when they won the Super Bowl, and then Peyton Manning, I think, had 9 touchdowns and 17 interceptions. It was the corpse of Peyton Manning, more like. But yeah, I mean, there was some good a long time ago, so it's hard to kind of fully buy into that as someone that's going to make a big difference in what they're trying to build here, especially not coming from a Shanahan tree, right? Because you're saying, hey, he's got to disseminate the offense. Sure, this isn't his offense, right? No. So like, there's a certain kind of learning curve that he's going to have himself. Did have Ben Johnson as an assistant coach while he was in Miami for a time. But yeah, obviously better as an assistant than a head coach. I'm not going to put too much stock into it, but I think Mike McDaniel has my benefit of the doubt as far as who he wants to hire for this offensive coaching staff, especially if it's a smaller role like it seems like this is right now. But one more move here from Matt Zenitz, who's a great follow, and we're going to be saying his name a lot today.
Yeah.
It's considered a strong possibility the Chargers hire Dolphins offensive assistant Max McCaffrey potentially as running backs coach, who is a Dolphins assistant from 2023 to 2025, David. And it also means that another Chargers coach is not going to be with them any longer.
Yeah, Max McCaffrey is going to be the running backs coach for the Chargers, taking the place of Kyle McDonald, who was the Chargers running back coach for the last couple of seasons under the kind of Greg Roman offense. And you had to know that this was going to be a move that was going to happen, right? You're going to want to bring in your guys. And I think this, speaks more to my point when I was talking about Adam Gase for Max McCaffrey is he's worked with Mike McDaniel the last several years in very close connection. So he knows the offense backwards and forwards, especially, when it comes to the running backs and the running game, which has been extremely successful the last several years. I just take a look at what Devon Achane has done, and even Raheem Mostert before that. They had some big years over there in Miami. So that to me is definitely not a bad move. And if that name sounds familiar, yes, it is that McCaffrey, the brother of the superstar who is in San Francisco.
Yeah, Christian McCaffrey's brother, Luke McCaffrey's brother. There's McCaffrey's all over the place, but he's interesting because before his time, because his first NFL job was as a Dolphins assistant. Before that, he was the Northern Colorado coach for a couple of years, where he started as a wide receiver coach and then became their offensive coordinator after his first year there, and was there in 2021, 2022 as their offensive coordinator, which obviously small school, but really good experience to have. You wonder what it means that Sanjay Lal, what this means for him, because you would think Max McCaffrey would probably be a wide receiver coach because that's what he played in college, and that seems to be what he worked most closely with in Miami. Maybe that means Sanjay Lal is safe, but there's been a lot of movement on this coaching staff, so it's hard to say. But obviously, someone they really wanted to get in the building, a bright kind of young offensive mind they see a lot of potential in. And when you kind of have the track record that Jesse Minter had, right, and Mike McDonald before him, and kind of this pipeline, it's like any kind of guy like this, even now on the offensive side, when you know what that Shanahan tree brings to the table, right, you get a little excited about it, and you wonder what this guy can do, because talking about someone who knows it, to your point, yes, he coached under Mike McDaniel. He also played for Kyle Shanahan in 2018 and was actually part of the offense they're going to be installing in 2026 and beyond, hopefully.
The Winter Games are officially here, and if you're anything like us, you're locking in for events you only get to see on the biggest stage every 4 years. That's why following the Winter Games on FanDuel just makes sense. From medal counts to individual events is finding your angle on the sports you care about the most. FanDuel gives you more ways to stay connected to the action. It's the building drama of curling matches, races defined by inches or fractions of a second. Both popular and niche events become must-watch when you're fully locked into the competition. The Winter Games are on, and there's no better place to follow them with FanDuel. Play your game.
Welcome back to the Big 6 and 60. The Pistons beat the Hornets on the road last night, but the result is not the story of the game. A third-quarter brawl left 4 players ejected and lots of suspensions coming for sure. Walker Mell and Doug Branson break everything down on Locked On Hornets.
The Hornets, they lose to the Pistons 110 to 104. But it's not even really about that. All right. I've got all my notes, pages upon pages.
What?
There's a lot to write about. I got
Hold
them all
on.
here.
I was ready to talk about pick and rolls. I was ready to talk about, the ice. Come on. Icing the screen. Come on.
You want to talk about ice?
No, I don't want to talk about ice.
I said icing
the screen. I said icing the screen.
Okay. Let's not talk about that. Let's instead talk about what in the hell happened in the third quarter, okay? Because I'm going to try to get this correct, as correct as possible. So, in the third quarter, Hornets and the Pistons, they're going back and forth, and Hornets are down. Jalen Duren going pretty crazy in the third quarter. Really just an awesome presence in the paint. It's one of the few times that I think we've seen Musa and his effort and his strength neutralized. I don't think that there are very many players that can do that in the NBA. Jalen Duren is one of them. And it's not even like Musa can get leverage on him as much as some of the other trees, because Jalen isn't all that tall, right? Like this was a hell of a match between the two. And I joked about it, Doug. I talked about the over-under on Jalen, Musa, and Beef Stew scuffles. It needs to be set about 2.5 for this game. But there was going to be something that happened. Joked about it, not even really joking about it. So all of it comes to a head in the third quarter because Musa Diabate fouls Jalen Duren in the post.
It wasn't like a crazy foul. Like, no, it wasn't even a hard foul. It was just a foul.
Just a battle between those two. I mean, Musa is being real physical with Jalen Duren, and it's all just it's a battle down low. That's what it is. Musa fouls Duren. Duren doesn't love it. Both guys headbutt one another. Mm-hmm. After the headbutt, Jalen Duren decides to push Musa's face away from his face.
His entire face. His entire face.
And that was really the pin that was pulled out of the grenade on this situation. It was Duren deciding to push Musa's entire face. Speaking of not loving it, Musa didn't love that. So he goes after Jalen Duren once, and they separate the two because Duren is backing up really the entire time that this brawl is happening. Musa, after being separated from Duren the first time, he recharges. And as Jalen is backing up, not only do you have Musa who recharges and then is corralled again, Miles Bridges decides that he's going to make a run at Jalen Duren, who's pretty far away from him. As soon as Miles decides to go after Jalen Duren, here comes Beef Stew. Oh, boy.
Is that Beef Stew's music?
It's too late. Here comes the crock pot, ready to mix it up. The two get into it there, and boy, that was a real fight that almost went to the ground. Miles tried to pick him up. I'll be honest, a lot of it I couldn't see. Just for people that are watching us on YouTube and that are listening to this, we are recording this. It is 11:09 Eastern, 10:09 Central for Doug in Nashville. So I literally got straight to the crib and opened up the computer, turned on the lights, the neon sign, and hopped on while simultaneously taking in some of the video, some of the information that continues to come in. And this is everything that I saw from my angle, just because people know that I broadcast for FanDuel Sports Network. I'm on the games. Where I sit for some of this stuff, it's easy to see where I sit next to Dell and Eric on the call. But then at the end of these situations, there's a lot that I miss with their commentary, with good views, because there are a bunch of people standing up right in front of me. But this was as wild a game as I've ever been to, especially with the crowd behind it. It was hardcore playoff atmosphere. You heard the national audience talking about it. After what happened, Hornets fans were ready to go. They were ready to fight too. My blood was going nuts. My heart was going crazy. This was a wild game, Doug. And me being there, I've never felt the Spectrum Center like that before. Given the circumstances, I've never heard it like that before. And I have to imagine you felt a lot of the same things with all that noise coming through your television screen.
I did, and I know you just landed and you're catching up on everything, and you were hard at work there at the Spectrum Center. So I'm going to, and I don't think we're going to get in trouble for this. We can't show the video of the whole fight. There's all kinds of rights issues, but I just need to show you the only video that you need to see from this, and it's this tweet from Sarah here that says, "The Hornets mascot wandering through the fight scene is sending me." And it's just Hugo walking through while someone is trying to restrain Musa Diabate in one of the expensive seats near the baseline.
Yeah, they're chilling in the squat. Like the fans are over there where they're trying to calm down Musa, who they're having a hell of a time trying to calm him down. It won't happen.
Well, and Con Knippel had probably the funniest remark of the post game when he said that he was trying to go over there to calm Musa down because he knew that Musa would not hurt him. And that begs a lot of questions, like who would Musa hurt? And I think it might, in that moment of rage, it might have included some of his teammates, just not Con Knippel. You can't hurt Con.
It felt like he was dealing with an animal that he's gained the trust of over years and years of handling and working with. This is an actual moose that he has gained the trust of that some of his other teammates may not have because they haven't put the time in, like Con Knippel. Hilarious comment. Lots of comedy within all of it. Don't know how much we'll get to, but there's a lot of comedy.
Yeah, look, I mean, there's a spectrum of NBA scuffles that range from Malice at the Palace to, your standard fake fight that everyone sort of agrees upon, like hockey, where they actually do hit. But in hockey, they still agree on things you can do. It's unwritten and some of it's written. And there's things you can do and you can't do. And then there are punishments within the game. NBA, a little bit similar. There are fake fight rules that everybody kind of abides by so that they don't get suspended. And the most unbelievable part of this for me is Musa's inability to be restrained. That's going to be the interesting thing, is like there's his initial reaction to being hit in the face, which I think is a natural reaction to one's entire face being pushed, going after the guy like that.
Yes.
Had it stopped there, I think we're still in the territory of maybe only Duran getting punished. But it's like once he was restrained and then he got away from the people, the security team, the people that were trying to restrain him, and then went after Duran again, that's when we went into some deeper territory. And then once it started getting near the fans, that's when I was like, oh, holy bleep. Like, are we about to, like, I've called it the brawl at the box jokingly, but for a minute there, I was like, oh man, are we about to do Malice at the Palace again? Are we about to see 40-game suspensions or rest of season suspensions as this thing starts to spill over? Because then all it takes is some fan thinking, and courtside fans love to think they're part of the game. All it takes is one fan thinking, oh, I'm going to go in and defend Musa from Duran. And then it's like all hell breaks loose. Thankfully, it didn't get to that point. But just like, it makes me wonder when it comes to Musa. I mean, this whole team has been playing red hot, emotions on their sleeve, feeling like they have something to prove for 9 straight games. And Musa in particular has taken a lot of contact, and he wants it. He wants the contact. He welcomes the contact. But he's taken a lot of contact, and he's fought tooth and nail every single game. And you just wonder if this was coming. And Duran provided it, but if it was coming eventually, because, Moose has just been taking on so much. And he obviously reacted very strongly in a way that I'm like, I mean, the moment that sits in my head is him being ushered out of the arena in the tunnel. The cameras catch this moment where he's emotional. He's not mad. He's emotional as 4 security members have him in a death grip, trying to remove him from the situation. It was wild.
That's all for today's Big 6 and 60. If you follow basketball, football, or college sports, the Big 3 and 30 has a half hour on the biggest news in the NFL, the NBA, and on campus, going up every weekday just like this one. Just search the Big 3 and 30 NBA, the Big 3 and 30 NFL, or the Big 3 and 30 college, wherever you're listening or watching now. Thanks again for tuning in to the Big 6 in 60.